next week. What does all of it mean? Joining us now to discuss this and more, we have Democratic Senator Chris Coons. He's a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committees. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Allison. Great to be on with you again.
Great to have you. Is the government going to shut down next Friday?
I certainly hope not. The only person who's been publicly saying that he would be proud to shut down the government is President Trump. And that would be a striking last gasp of the government with Republicans in control of both the Senate and the House and the White House.
Look, I mean, as I heard what he said, and it sounded to me, said, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to play this brinksmanship. I care about the wall, he's claiming, that much. And I think he thinks that his base would be with him because they care about the wall that much. And so he's willing to take responsibility for this. It would be a partial shutdown. And it sounds like he's willing to go there. And I guess my question is this brinksmanship good for Democrats? I mean, I understand that even if you call it the Trump shutdown, as Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer kept doing, don't voters hold all of government and Congress responsible for being dysfunctional?
Well, Allison, yes. I think the average American, the average voter, just wishes that we would find things to work together on, problems to solve, rather than greater problems to create. But the reality here is that the vast majority of Democrats have voted for significant increases in border security. The fight we're having here is really more over the symbolism of whether we're going to give President Trump $5 billion more for wall funding when he already got about $1.3 billion this year that hasn't been spent yet for border security. We had a hearing yesterday where the head of the Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, was in front of us describing how much they've built, how much more they could build, and where, frankly, there's an emerging gap between the leaders in the administration responsible for border security and what they say would be wise investments, and the president's grandstanding over demanding $5 billion more. The president keeps mischaracterizing Democrats as wanting open borders and not being willing to invest in border security. Allison, that's just not true.
Well, Senator, I'm just confused. Why are Democrats willing to give the president any money on a border wall when he made a campaign promise that Mexico would pay for it?
Right. We're both old enough to remember when Mexico was going to pay for this wall. I think there is broad agreement that in order to make progress on immigration issues, we are willing to work in a bipartisan way on improving border security. I think that's a responsible part of being committed to having secure borders, but not an unlimited amount and not an amount that is clearly purely for public relations purposes.
Yeah, so how is this stalemate going to be broken?
I suspect it'll be broken the way the last one was, which is the president will blink and we will end up appropriating some money for border security. We won't shut the government down and we'll all move forward. As someone who's on the Appropriations Committee, the committee responsible for all the spending decisions, we have made more progress, come farther than at any point in my 8 years. And so I know the leadership, both Republican and Democrat of the Senate and the House, is really hopeful that we can get past this point without a dramatic shutdown the week before Christmas. Allison, there's other good things going on here. We just passed a bipartisan farm bill yesterday out of the Senate. We're about to take up and pass a criminal justice bill, and I'm hopeful we'll send a strong bipartisan message that the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, an American resident journalist, by the Saudis is unacceptable. And on Monday, Senator Tillis and I introduced a bill to create a new Human Rights Commission here in the Senate in honor of the late Senator John McCain. I
want to ask you about some of that, including the criminal justice reform. Why was Leader Mitch McConnell so resistant to bringing this forward for a vote?
Because it divides his caucus. There are a number of Republican senators very strongly opposed to any sort of criminal justice reform. But eventually, as they were doing an internal whip count, seeing how many Republican senators favored it or opposed it, the numbers became overwhelming, and the majority leader was willing to give this a vote because it's already passed the House, because it has support from the White House, and because an overwhelming majority of senators, both Democrats and Republicans, have endorsed this. It's a bill I've co-sponsored and worked on over the last 6 years. This is an important bipartisan accomplishment, Allison.
Okay, I want to ask you about the revelations out of Michael Cohen's criminal case. He's going to be sentenced today. And in the sentencing memo, the big headline was that prosecutors believe, because Michael Cohen said it, and they have other evidence, we are told, that he was directed to make hush money payments about the two women who allege affairs with Donald Trump in order to help Donald Trump win the presidency, to rob voters of the information, relevant information that they might have wanted to have before they went to the polls. And so he paid off these women and was directed to do so, he says, by Donald Trump. Your colleagues on Capitol Hill don't read the sentencing memo that way. Let me play for you a brief smattering of some of their responses.
On Friday night, federal prosecutors implicated the president in 2 crimes. Do you have any concerns about that?
I don't have any observations to make about that.
I don't agree with the assumption that he's been accused of a crime. I don't see that here. I see that
he's been
the Mueller
implicated.
investigation.
He's been implicated, Michael.
I disagree with that.
I don't care. All I can say is he's doing a good job as president.
Of course, Orrin Hatch is on Judiciary with you. He says he doesn't care because he likes what the president's doing. What's your response to all of that?
Allison, that's sadly a pretty good summary of the overall opinion of most of my colleagues on the other side. I don't care about the president having made hushed payments to a porn star just before the election. He's doing a good job. Broadly speaking, many of my colleagues think that between deregulation and tax cuts and a conservative Supreme Court, that President Trump has accomplished their policy goals, and that should lead us to overlook or forgive a lot of other things that are destabilizing, that are undermining the rule of law, or that may be just flat out illegal.
So, do Democrats believe that something illegal, a federal crime of campaign finance violations, again, robbing the voters of important information, is that worth going through the process of investigations and impeachment and all the things that would obviously take the eye off the ball of other agenda items?
Well, as you know, what I've urged my House colleagues in the incoming Democratic majority to do is to take up and pass a series of strong, broad bills that would reduce the costs of health care, of co-pays and of deductibles, and improve the quality of health care, that would create more high-paying, good-quality jobs through investing in infrastructure, that would address the opioid crisis in a broader and more meaningful way, put those on the table, push them over to the Senate and say, let's get real things done to help the average American, and call the question, see if we're actually able to get things done on a bipartisan basis.
So
yes,
no
there are
is the
issues,
answer.
Allison, there are issues that deserve investigation, and I'm confident that Jerry Nadler, the incoming chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, will hold the president accountable for a number of the issues we've just talked about.
Well, but he sees, as you know, he sees things that do rise to the level of impeachable crimes. So you would say, don't go there.
I'd say start by showing that we are committed to legislating in a responsible and bipartisan way on the issues that I hear in Delaware affect the average family. That's what they want us to do. The average American doesn't want impeachment and shutdown. They want progress and solutions. And it is our job to hold the president accountable and improve the transparency of this administration. But I think our first job is to make sure it's clear we are willing to legislate in a responsible fashion that addresses the real problems. The average American is waking up this morning saying, how can I possibly afford health care for my ailing mother? How can I afford retirement? How can I afford to send my kid on to college if he finishes high school? And how can I pay these health care bills? That's the sort of thing that the average American sitting around their breakfast table before they head off to work and school is struggling with. And that's what they want to see us do in Washington, not more bickering and fighting.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you very much. Great to talk to you. John.
All right, we are watching breaking news, a major international story developing at this moment. British Prime Minister